Welcome, everybody. Welcome, students, to this portion of our Career Speaker Series. We're super excited to be here. We have a special guest for you today, Rae Benjamin, who will shortly introduce herself. But like I said, we're super excited for this because it's an opportunity for all of you to get to explore different careers. I know you've already had different webinars that you participated in, so this is just another one for you to get to kind of see what else is out there. So Rae Benjamin, I'm gonna just do a quick introduction. She currently is a script coordinator for Netflix on shows such as The Witcher and Bridgerton. So that's amazing. She's gonna tell us all about that, all about her career trajectory. So without further ado, Rae Benjamin, would you mind just introducing yourself to all our students?
Yeah, my name's Rae, as you said. I actually just got a job on a new show, so I'm going to be working on an HBO show starting next week. Still being a script coordinator. But yeah, so my trajectory is to be a writer, a television writer. To do that first, I was a writer's assistant on Bridgerton, then a script coordinator on The Witcher, both on Netflix. I'm currently going to be a script coordinator on an HBO Max show that is not out yet, but it will come out probably next year or later this year. And I also started a business called In the Cut to help people learn about the entertainment industry and just learn about careers that you could have.
Great. So I know you're a script coordinator. So can you explain to us a little bit what that means? What does that entail? What does a script coordinator do?
Yeah, exactly. So a script coordinator, basically, my main job is to proofread the script before it goes out to the actors, the crew members, producers, the network, anyone who needs to read the script. So I have to proofread it, but also I'm just checking for just errors in general. If there's continuity errors. So for example, if in the last episode, say you called a character Bob, and then the next episode you call him Rob, something like that, just to make sure that everything makes sense. And also work with the legal department in certain cases for clearing issues. So for example, when you watch a TV show and you see someone using an iPhone, like you have to get permission from Apple first before you can show someone using an iPhone on your show. So if there's any issues like that, I just tell the lawyers, hey, in this episode, this person's using an iPhone, so you have to contact Apple.
Okay, that's really cool. And what made you decide to go into this field? Going through your bio, I think I saw you were is it a poli-sci major originally?
Yeah, so I took a very non-traditional path because, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer at first. So I was a poli-sci major, but quickly I had an internship at Fox doing like actor contracts, and it was so boring. And I was like, I don't want to be a lawyer, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So actually, when I graduated college, I did a lot of random things. I was a DJ. I was a nanny, like I was a yoga teacher. I had many, many jobs before I fell into this. So I think I say that because I think a lot of people, especially young people, think that you have to know what you're doing, like when you graduate high school or even college. But it's okay if you're not sure yet. It's okay if you change your mind. That's totally fine. Writing is something I always loved. I actually went to an arts high school for creative writing, but it was just a hobby. I didn't think that could be a job, to be honest, until I got older and learned about writing for TV, and that's when I sort of pivoted.
Right. Yeah. And no, I 100% agree. I think a lot of times we have that misconception that we have to have our entire lives figured out, and that's just not always the case, right? You kind of just have to go roll with the punches sometimes. So can you talk a little bit about that? About just kind of like adjusting to it and just having to pivot, having to just, like I said, just roll with the punches and not necessarily knowing exactly what you were going to do right after you graduated. Even, obviously you were a political science major, and this is kind of right a 180 to what you originally intended of being a lawyer at one point. Talk a little bit about that process. What was that process like for you?
Yeah, I think what I do like about the entertainment industry is that they are really less concerned with, degrees that you have. And it's just more about being enthusiastic and having a script. Like, I personally don't want to be a writer. So you don't have to go to film school. You don't have to do that. If you've written a solid script, that's what people are going to ask you for. They're going to ask, hey, can I read your script? And that's how you'll get a job. When I got my writer's assistant job on Bridgerton, that was really my first industry job. I had been working for as a graphic designer for several years, so I'd never worked on a TV show, but I had a script. And so to get that job, the showrunner, that's what the boss of a show is called, the showrunner, he asked, like, can I read a writing sample? And so I had a script, and he really liked the sample. It just so happened that the sample I wrote was a period piece as well, around the same time period in the 1800s. So mine was set in America, but he really liked it and it fit along with the theme for the show. So I was able to get that job, even though I didn't have any actual experience, but I put in the work myself to make sure I was writing a script that could be seen. So I think whatever the entertainment industry is really less about, I think, formal education. It's just about your enthusiasm and your experience. So if you want to be a writer, I would suggest write scripts. If you want to be a director, you can get a job as a PA, which means production assistant, and that's like an entry level job. You don't need any experience to do that, and you can be on set and learn about everything. I honestly recommend, if anyone's interested in the entertainment industry at all, that working as a PA is a great job because you don't need any experience and you can really see all the departments. You can see what directors do, what the camera people are doing, lighting, costuming, even writers if they're on set, even actors. I think that's just a great entry level job if you're not really sure and you can see what's happening.
Great, thank you for that. And then I'm gonna just take this second to encourage students to ask questions. If you have any questions, to go ahead and ask them in the chat. The last 5-10 minutes or so are gonna be directed to Q&A. So I saw we had one already. So just keep them coming, and we'll definitely ask those, or be sure to ask Rae that before we let her go here on this call. But I do want to touch on something that you mentioned, Rae, and I think that's transferable skills. You've had different jobs throughout your careers, and I think one of them, for example, you were a digital artist at Tom's, the shoe company, which of course everybody knows Tom's. All right, so talk a little bit about how that's helped you through your career, right? Even though it wasn't necessarily what you were looking to do, and obviously now you're script coordinator. But talk about how some of the jobs or some of the skills that you've picked up along the way have helped you at what you're doing now.
They really helped. I was actually talking to my best friend yesterday, and she was saying, like, it's so funny about how you've done all these random things, but they all have helped, especially my background in graphic design. That really helped when I started my business because I could make my own website. I could make everything myself and I didn't have to pay someone. So even though I don't do graphic design for Tom's or other companies anymore, I can do it for myself. In my background in design, it actually really helped as a writer, to be honest, because what people don't realize, I think, about TV writing, especially, it's very collaborative. You have something called a writer's room. So there's multiple writers on a show and they're all together brainstorming ideas. And then maybe one writer goes off and physically writes it, but everyone's brainstorming and throwing their ideas out. And that's exactly what it was like working as a graphic designer at Tom's. I also worked at advertising agencies, but that's basically what our design process was. There'd be a team of designers, a team of writers. When we had a new project, we'd go into the room, we'd brainstorm ideas of what this could look like, what are different vibes. We come up with different solutions, and maybe one person would be responsible for executing maybe two ideas, another person another two, and so we sort of whittled it down, and it was very collaborative. And it was also very, I don't want to say repetitive, but it is, because you're constantly making edits all the time. As a graphic designer, it's not like one thing is done. It's like you do it, you'll have feedback from the client, you'll have feedback from art director, creative director, you have feedback from so many people that you're constantly having to redo the same thing over and over. And that's exactly what a TV show is like. From when the writers write it to when you see it on TV, there's probably 20 different versions of a script. And I didn't know that until I worked on a TV show. I didn't know how much they're rewriting stuff. So I think honestly, it's very much the same actually, working as a graphic designer, working on a TV show.
No, that's true. I remember one time I was an extra for like a week on a show, and I didn't realize everything that goes into it, just like all the different takes. Like it's insane. Uh,
Yes.
so it's definitely, when you're behind the curtains, you just get to see a whole other view of it. So that's 100% true. What advice would you give to a student who is right now, they're our students right now are in high school and they're just 100% sure they want to go into the entertainment industry? What would you recommend that they do? Whether it's internships, volunteer opportunities. You mentioned yourself, like maybe writing scripts on the side. Maybe I don't know. What would you recommend to that student out there that's like has their mind made up? They're tunnel vision. They're 100% sure that that's what they want.
Yeah, I think internships are great. Like if you're young, take advantage of that because so many people I know have had an internship that later turned into a real job. And a lot of internships are only available to students, like for college credit. So if you're in college, or I mean, you're about to be after high school, but I would take advantage of that. Also, I think YouTube is great. There's so many YouTube channels. I'm trying to think of one. I have a bunch on my website if you want to check it out, in the cutla.org/resources. I have like YouTube channels, but like there's so much free information out there. Like before, maybe you would have had to go to film school, maybe you would have had to take a class, but now I think like you can buy a book and read a book. You can go on YouTube and learn how to write a script. Like you can follow Instagram accounts and learn how to write a script. So I think there are just so many unique channels that if you're really not sure, I think you can learn and do research without having to jump in.
Right. Yeah, no, that's great advice. And I think just a good segue, you mentioned In the Cut. Tell us a little bit more about that. I was reading up on it, and I know you've had people that have worked on, Insecure, Grey's Anatomy, Hawkeye, The Witcher on help you throughout this program that you're running. And you're founder and CEO. So tell us a little bit about this. What does it do? Why did you have a passion for this? Why did you want to see this through?
Yeah, I had a passion because I was someone who didn't go to film school, who came from another career, like I said. And when I wanted to be a writer, I just found it was really hard to find information. I think it's easy to find information about the craft, like how to write a script, how to direct a script, how to act, whatever you want to do. I think there's information about craft that's easily available, but I think there's less information about how to actually get a job doing this. Like, how do I make this a career? And I was struggling to find information. And I'm someone, I'm from LA. I grew up here where it is. And if I don't know how to do this, then I'm sure other people don't know. So it's been really great what we've been able to do. Like you said, last week we had a webinar with the showrunner of Insecure. Like you said, we've had really great writers, producers, directors, and just sharing information with people for free or like a very low cost. And also my Instagram, I post all sorts of things on my Instagram, like contests you can enter, fellowships, jobs, internships, just to give people information on how to start because I didn't have that information.
Yeah, that's great. And feel free to plug your Instagram on our chat so students can follow you and get some of those resources. And I'm sure they'd be interested in hearing about some of those things. Because obviously, I think it's important to know it takes a village, right? I think sometimes we have the misconception we have to do everything on our own. And it's like nobody that accomplished anything great just did something on their own. They always had somebody that was able to help them out. So yeah, she went ahead and added her Instagram handle so y'all can follow her and get some information, get some resources that she's putting out there, and start growing your network. I think that's really important as well. Cool. I'm gonna just to make sure we have enough time. Somebody, and I know you covered it a little bit already, but can you just tell us about the process of getting your job at Netflix? What did that entail? I know you kind of mentioned that you worked your way up, but how did you ultimately land your job at Netflix?
Yeah, unfortunately, well, I think like Netflix, that's also a thing. Like, I worked on a TV show that airs on Netflix, but I don't technically work for
Right.
Netflix. I work for the TV show. So like our offices were not in the Netflix building. Like, I never really interacted with anyone at Netflix except, I sent them the scripts, but I don't talk to anyone at Netflix. But unfortunately, to get a job on TV shows as a writer in the writer's room, it is unfortunate because it's like you have to know someone. These jobs are not publicly posted anywhere. So it's basically I had a mutual friend that knew someone that told me about the job. Yeah, so that's how I got how I learned about the job, but I still had to submit my script. I still had to go on the interview, but I wouldn't have learned about the job unless that mutual friend didn't tell me.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, once again, it goes back to having that network, right? And let's take it back a little bit to right out of college. What was your first job right out of college? I think that's a big deal for all of us
Oh,
because we're just kind of like, I mean, in my experience too, I was just like, I'm gonna take whatever I can get. Like
yeah,
if it's
that
a
was
full-time
yeah.
job, I'm taking it. Like so. Tell us a little bit about your process. What was your first job out of college,
Um,
and just about the job
I
and what you learned from it?
well, I didn't have a job for a long time, so that is factual. Like when I graduated in 2009, so that's like height of the recession. So like none of my friends had jobs. We went and lived back home with our parents. But after I did that for a few months, the first job I had, I was like a club promoter. So I was promoting
You gotta
people to
hustle.
go to the club. That was my job. And I was a college graduate telling people to go to the club. Um, but that's how you had to do. My first real job, I honestly I would like I said, I was a club promoter. I worked at a daycare. I was a bank teller, but I didn't have like my first full-time job until I was 26. I want to say, yeah. So it took a while. And my first full-time job, I was a graphic designer at 26.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually really interesting. What did you do to like not get impatient to continue to persevere, right? It's like because I think that happens to a lot of people. It's not something uncommon where you graduate, you have a college degree, and they tell you like, oh, all you got to do is go to college, and you're gonna be set up for success, and you think like, oh, you're gonna get a job overnight, right? And that's not the case. And obviously, you're very successful now, but that didn't how to kind of continue to hustle. And tell us about that process. What did you kind of just make sure that your mind was kept on your goals and not not give up?
Yeah, honestly, I think I called it like a quarter life crisis. I feel like after I graduated college, I was like, what is going on with my life? And I think that's because, like you said, a lot of people, we were sort of instilled that if you go to college, when you graduate, you'll get a job. And maybe that was true for our parents, but I think we live at our generation, like millennials and now Gen Z, I feel like the transition from going to college to just getting a job isn't as clear cut anymore. And there's a lot of people who are wildly successful and never even went to college as well. So I think I dealt with it by just knowing that other people were going through the same things as me. I felt like I think if you think you're doing it alone, you can feel like a failure and you're doing something wrong and it's like a personal fault of yours. But I saw that my friends were in the same position as me, and all my friends went to college. We're all, smart people. We all got good grades, and we all didn't have a job. And it wasn't for lack of trying. We were trying. It's just it was we were in a recession. It was highly competitive, so it was just hard. And I also I think doing it's okay to do jobs that aren't your major. I think that's a lot of things like I speak at like my college alumni events a lot, and I think a lot of young people think, oh, I choose this and I have to do this, but I think most people I know don't do anything related to their major, to be honest. So just know that you're not alone. A lot of people are in the same position as you. And in my opinion, it's better to, do another job, do what you can. Like, I knew that my goal wasn't to be a babysitter that for life, but sometimes you got to babysit to get money. And so that was fine with me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, especially after college, you're just trying to find a job anywhere. I had same thing. I think I worked part time like at a middle school for an after school program. I just needed like
Yeah.
to work somewhere. And before I finally had my first full time job opportunity, we had a student ask a little bit more about a PA, so a production assistant. I know you talked about how that's a good entry level. Mind talking a little bit more about that? What would be the necessary steps if a student would be interested in pursuing a PA position?
Yeah, fortunately, a lot of PA jobs are listed online because you don't really need experience. So you can even go on sites like Indeed.com. I've seen jobs listed there to be like a PA on the Ellen show. Like that's listed on Indeed. There's also jobs specific for the entertainment industry. There's a website called Hollylist that posts PA jobs a lot. But yeah, the PA job, I think the most, because it's an entry level job, they're not expecting that you have a lot of experience. But I think the most important thing is just to have a good attitude, because you're basically just like doing anything that they need. So if they're like, go to the store and buy 10 gallons of water, like you might have to do that. There's just, I would just say, yeah, to be a PA, you just need a positive spirit, be proactive, like don't wait around and wait for people to tell you to do something. On a set, there's always something that can be done. So just always be working. If you see nothing needs to be done, you can ask, how can I be of service, and people will like that, and that's how you'll get promoted.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point. Like, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. I think sometimes, especially in you assume that you're going to get into the industry and you're going to be already at the top. It's like you got to work your way up from the bottom,
Yeah.
right? And you got to do some of that scrub work before you're able to get up there. And I think that's if people, no matter what job you're in, just work 110% at that job, and people will notice you. Because if you're slacking, even if you're slacking at the smallest job, then they're not going to trust you to do that bigger job or to get that promotion. So I think that's a really important point that you made. Uh, okay, so I think we have about 2 more minutes. So I think just what I'm going to ask from you, just final words of advice for our current high school students that are hoping to pursue a similar career trajectory to yours, or just in general, just more of like, what would you want to tell our students? What would you want to tell your younger self, right? 10, 15 years ago, when you were in our students' positions?
I would just say younger people nowadays have it so great because they can create their own content. You can start a YouTube channel, you can start an Instagram, a TikTok, and a lot of people are transitioning into getting TV shows from having a popular TikTok. So I would say if you're really dedicated to the craft, I would create my own content, but also learn, read books, take a screenwriting class if you want to. You YouTube, educate yourself, and also make your own things, because you don't really need to wait for permission to you don't need to wait to get a job at Netflix to write a show. You can write your own show and then sell it to Netflix.
That's awesome. All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Rae, for joining us. We really appreciate it. I know you had to go outside to make some
Sorry,
time for us,
yeah.
but no, it went great. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the great words of advice. I'm sure you'll get a lot of follows on
Yes, and
IG.
like feel free to DM me. I answer every DM. If you have a question that you didn't think of right now, like DM me, I'll answer your questions.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We'll definitely keep in contact with you. Hopefully, we can work together again in the near future.
Of course, would love that. Thank you. Have a good day, guys.